I can hardly sleep. It's this is a must-win game against Northwestern.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. And also I think that we owe it to them to give them a loss because they're not really like, what are they Northwestern of? You know what I mean? Like they're in Northeast Illinois. They're east of the Mississippi. And like I don't know, like maybe they're Northwestern, like is it in the Northwestern area of Evanston? Hello, good evening. It is Wednesday. It is 8 o'clock, and we are here at the Iowa Sports Review, starring me, your host, Adam Jacobi from GoIowaAwesome.com. And whew, I believe we've got a lot to talk about. Dan, I can hear you. First of all, we've got a 2-game losing streak to work on. I think we all know that. We don't need to dwell on the negatives. And hopefully, we've got ourselves a little bit of a positive coming up this week, as it is Northwestern week. The Cats from Northwestern something. It's northwest of Indiana. That's all I can give them. So there's that. Seriously, just name your school something else now. Just do it. Anyway, if you're new to this show, welcome. The format is pretty simple. This is a YouTube version of a call-in show. So we take your questions, your thoughts, your hot takes, your concerns, and we share them with you. We talk them out, and hopefully we learn a little something about Iowa football along the way. Maybe even learn a little something about ourselves. So go ahead and hop into the chat on the YouTube that you're watching from. It's going to be on the right or bottom right, depending on what your setup is, whether you're watching on mobile, what have you. But anyway, your questions, your thoughts are always welcome. And ultimately, we are here for all of you. This is a community-based show. I'm just the pretty face, and it is quite pretty. But ultimately, I'm here as a vehicle, a vessel for everybody. So go ahead and hop into the chat. And while you're here, go ahead and click the little like button. Go ahead and turn on notifications. Go ahead and hit that subscribe if you haven't already. It not only does it make us feel good, and not only do we like to see numbers go up, but it also tells YouTube that this is a fun, enjoyable, energetic community that's fun to be a part of, and it helps more people come and discover us. So with that all said, let's start taking your questions right now as we get prepared for Northwestern. I know that the secondary is already as dinged up as it was against Wisconsin. They're already expecting Riley Moss and Scary Terry Roberts to not be part of this game. Neither of them are practicing yet, or if they are, they're limited practice participants. And I think that they're this close to the game Wednesday night, and it's a Saturday game under the lights because when you think of electric night atmospheres, you think Evanston, Illinois, with a crowd that's usually 2/3 visiting teams. I mean, why 6 p.m.? Why this week? Why anything? Why eat at Arby's? But fortunately, Northwestern is not good at football this year. They got absolutely roasted by Nebraska, of all teams. Nebraska has 3 wins on the season, and Northwestern is probably the best one of them, although, it's a low bar. It's a very low bar. So hopefully hopefully this is going to be an opportunity for the Iowa football team to, at the very least, not have an opponent that is as geared toward making your life miserable as Wisconsin's defense, and to a lesser extent, Wisconsin's offense is. So, I'm obviously, during a 2-game losing streak, we can't make any promises. We're not, it's a little hard to be optimistic. I get it. But even with Iowa's offense looking so bad over the last couple of weeks, Iowa is still favored by, I believe I saw 10.5 points over Northwestern. So, not a sure thing. But it would certainly be a surprise if Iowa lost this game, even after the last 2 weeks, where nothing they can do really can surprise us anymore. No depth of ineptitude can sort of take us by shock. But Northwestern, again, is so bad. And unlike Wisconsin, I don't think Northwestern has the type of personnel to really give Iowa fits the way that Wisconsin's could. The Wildcat defense, I'm not saying that they're going to make Spencer Petras look like Peyton Manning, but they might. We don't know. Certainly they've got it in them if they really want to take the week off. Andrew, who, by the way, was a winner of the Jeff McNutt print, the Giclée, I believe was the pronunciation of it. The high quality print from a couple weeks ago. Andrew, hope you get that sent to you soon if you haven't gotten it already. If I had to bet, what's Iowa's schedule at the end of the year? Curly fries. I don't. What's their schedule at the end of the year? The Las Vegas Bowl, maybe? I don't know. But also eat at Arby's. David Marks, old friend, old pal, asks, we have a chance of winning this week? Yes, we do. We do. Which is, this is it. What's a good way to put this? There was a chance of Iowa winning the Purdue game and the Wisconsin game, the Wednesday prior to each of those contests as well. So don't, just because there's a chance, there has been a chance always. So, it's not like this is hopeless, but it's not like the Purdue, like going into the Purdue game, Iowa was number 2. Iowa was favored by, 13.5 points. So that was not, obviously that didn't come to fruition, but also that was, not altogether dissimilar from the situation that Iowa's in right now. So, obviously I think a lot of the shine has come off, and, probably for the best, because this team's problems were always going to cause them trouble in the Big Ten. And now that they've got those couple losses, now that they're knocked down in the rankings as much as we feared, they're about where they belong, right? So even without the freight train momentum, the high expectations, the 6-0, the top 5, the rah, even without all that, this is just the challenging aspect of playing in the Big Ten, where probably the easiest game on the schedule is Northwestern, and Northwestern is I mean, not good, objectively not good. But they are, it's not like you get to play Kansas, or I would have said Wake Forest, but they're actually good this year, or like Vanderbilt, right? Like there aren't any doormats in the Big Ten West, not even Nebraska. A little worried about that game still too. So it's not dissimilar to Big Ten basketball, where you have to understand that every single game is a potential win. Every single game is a potential loss, no matter what your team's record is. And it's it's really exhausting for the players. That if just pick a game on their schedule, if they just go at it 90%, it's probably going to be not a fun afternoon for them. Like they've got to bring it every single week. And it's one thing for some punk like me to say, well, yeah, just bring it every week. When you're actually in that situation, when you're actually that 18 to 22-year-old kid, it's like Chuck Long said last week. The reality is, you get up for 3 or 4 games a year, and that goes for any team. That's not an Iowa problem. That is a college football thing. And so if this game isn't going to be Iowa's, one of their 3 or 4 like really emotional boosted games, and I'm just going to guess that they're not going to bring the same intensity to this one that they did against Penn State. Not a knock on Iowa, not a knock on, anybody on the coaching staff or the roster, just just an observation psychologically about, college football in general. Yeah, I mean, they're in a little bit of danger, girl. Which sounds crazy, but again, this is the Big Ten. This is the nature of a schedule where there are no easy victories other than Iowa State and Indiana and the other glorified MAC programs. This is like Kirk said, that's football, So, let's see. We got some more chats. Yeah, Andrew, I'm a little bit worried too about the rest of the schedule, because it seems like here's why I'm worried, right? It seems like the offense has regressed over the course of the season, which you wouldn't expect, especially from a younger team in a developmental program, as they so often like to say. And part of it is, they're not in, once the defense is not creating turnovers at an insane, like record-breaking rate, once they're not doing that anymore, and they haven't over the last couple of weeks, the offense is not often in a position to succeed in a way that they were before, right? They're not exactly starting drives at, the opponent's 30-yard line every now and like now, once they're forcing punts instead of forcing turnovers, all of a sudden they're starting the drive at their own 12-yard line, their own 15. And with an offense like this, the nice way to put it is they can use the offense can use all the help it can get in terms of field position, in terms of getting the ball into scoring range and then keeping it there. We've seen them get sacked out of field goal range on more than one occasion this season. And with the line being in the condition that it is, we'll probably see it again over the last 4 weeks. It just is what it is. So that's, I mean, yeah, it's frustrating. And there's only so much you can ask the defense to do to change that. But, at the end of the day, this defense is not one of those give up 50 yards and really, because they're outside of Tuscaloosa or Clemson, there really aren't, or Georgia this year, Athens, right? Okay, those schools can bring defenses that will really shut you down 4 quarters every drive. No, like we're not giving up first downs. We're not letting you pass the 50. And that is not quite what Iowa's defensive MO has been all year. It can make things very difficult. This is a defense that turns you over a lot, but it's also a defense that is not particularly aggressive with the play calls. It's not, I don't think that we've seen them blitz nearly as often this year as they have in years past. Uh, it also seems like Dane Belton's role as the cash or whatever they call that position, the star position. I don't see him as active as he has been, like even last year. I thought he was much more of a playmaker, and so it's not like he's just decided to get worse at football. It's not like Petrus decided to get worse at football, but it seems like these guys are not being put into position to succeed as much as they used to. And some of that is coaching. Some of that is player development. Some of that is, there's some of it is luck, honestly. There's all sorts of things that go into this. But the point is, the sport is kind of difficult for these guys right now. You can lay that at Brian Ferentz's feet. I'm not going to stop you there in terms of getting these guys ready to play. You can lay it at the players' feet as Ferentz did. And there is, something to that. If you don't know your playbook, you don't know your playbook. But it does seem a little bit weird that Iowa, of all schools, Kirk Ferentz of all coaches, cannot get 5 guys, a top 5, to get on the field, to know I guess what would we call it? A complex playbook? Is Iowa's offense all that complex? I don't know. I've never read the thing. But based on the comments made, it sounds like it has to, or it has been simplified and sort of necessarily for the blockers' benefit. But boy, it seems like that shouldn't be happening at the University of Iowa. And it really seems like it shouldn't be happening in the Big Ten, because that has always been the recipe for success in the conference, especially over the last 10 years or so. How often have I said it on this show? It starts with the offensive line. And this offensive line is bad. It's right now in week, what is it, 9, week 8, week 9, right now in 2021, the offensive line is objectively bad. I think they have the potential to turn it around. I think that, in 2 years' time, they're going to start cashing in on all that potential that they had in recruiting and what have you. They're very young, especially aside from Tyler Linderbaum. They're very young. So there's a lot of room to grow if they want to. But, fingers crossed that they can start turning that potential into production on the field. And, this isn't the first time that we've seen Iowa try to negotiate with a bad offensive line. 2007 in particular really jumped out to me. And that was also a year where they had really inexperienced receivers too. And so Jake Christensen, and this is not a Jake Christensen apologist web stream cam thing, show, whatever you want to call it, but you could see him regress as a quarterback week to week because his timing just kept getting interrupted. He would throw to receivers who may or may not be in position, and it just fried his ticker upstairs. And he was just never the same QB after that. Now, those offensive linemen, by 2008, 2009, were fearsome, right? And Ricky Stanzi was the beneficiary of that easily. So we have we know how this can go from bad to good. We know that. But just, well, I mean, really, we don't, apparently, we don't have much other option other than just crossing our fingers and saying, well, 2022, maybe. Anyway, yeah. Circle Herc. I agree with this. Just what Iowa needs right now. Yeah, again, because Northwestern does not have the personnel to really blow up everything that Iowa wants to do on offense the way that Wisconsin does. That Wisconsin defense is frightening, especially when you don't have a good offensive line. And again, Iowa doesn't right now. Northwestern's is not well coached. You don't see them even take care of details all that well. And which has not really been the Northwestern MO over the years, but Pat Fitzgerald's hires have been exactly as disastrous as we want them to be. So I I am really looking forward to this game, just because I'm really looking forward to Iowa getting into like double digits on offense. Wouldn't that be nice? I think it would be nice. I think it would. David, yeah. I think a lot of people know Iowa's playbook, even though they've never read it. Normally we call them Big Ten defensive coordinators. What was really jarring. So I was at the Wisconsin game last week, and I was dressed up as Guy Fieri, and boy, there's a certain level of suffering that happens where you've driven 4 hours, you're watching your favorite team in a place like Camp Randall, your favorite team is getting just chumped out for all 4 quarters, and you've dressed up for the occasion. You're in full, like I had a wig, I had the sunglasses, the fire bowling shirt. I actually thought about wearing it today, but also no. Anyway, all that to say, I was there. And what was jarring to me, what I noticed over and over, was that Wisconsin was constantly single covering Iowa's wideouts. And Petrus either didn't have time to throw those, deeper passes, or he just didn't want to. But it was always, it was off the table, even though Wisconsin was daring them to throw those passes on every single play, just daring them. And the Ferentz game plan was like, no. It's our slants and ins and 3-yard outs. And that just played directly into what Wisconsin wanted Iowa to do. So between that and an offensive line that doesn't really have the zone blocking thing perfected, clearly doesn't have it perfected. I mean, gosh, how many times did Goodson, get the ball and immediately have a guy, right there and try to have to dance around it. And that's a whole lot easier said than done. You don't really want to see your running back dancing in the backfield against a defense like Wisconsin's. That's your indication that something has gone wrong, and something went wrong over and over up there in Madison. And so just to witness that, and to witness the Badger defense saying, go ahead, test us one-on-one on the perimeter, and Iowa just saying, we want no part of that fight, buckaroo. No, sir. I like that. It was a perfect encapsulation of what has driven fans crazy. Not only this year, not only over the last 5 years, but really over the whole Kirk Ferentz tenure. And it's also especially frustrating because after 21 years, we know this isn't going to change. We have no reason to expect something explosive all of a sudden. I know that Kirk said that fans, if it were up to fans, the offense would always play like 2002 and the defense would always play like 2004. I think that was his quote. And like, yeah, of course we want that, because we know that Iowa is capable of that. Like, we have seen these results before. We want them again. We want them back. Like, just like, there is nothing about having a world-class defense that should also necessarily prevent your team from having a great offense too. These things are entirely independent. Some of it is, deciding when to play the field position game. Punting is winning. But, at the end of the day, you can run your offense with the intent of scoring 30, 40 points a game. And it's not really better to be like, well, that's a little too risky. I think we're going to take this down a couple notches and then just drop 7 points on Purdue and Wisconsin in back-to-back games. Like, that is not better. Nothing about that is better. To have one first down at halftime, and that came late in the first half. That's not okay. That is so far beyond a worst case scenario for any functioning offense. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that fans want results. It's obvious that fans are going to want something different to happen. So much of fandom here. Let me get on. Yeah, first of all, yes, I agree with that. More Goodson out of the backfield. And it's especially like more than just running the arrow route to the sideline or that like receiver in route that they like to throw, and which they got plenty of distance out of, like running with Akram Wadley. They love that little receiver in angle route, and like I said, it's worked well in the past. But if that and one or two screens a week is what you do for getting the ball to Goodson in your pass game, that seems insufficient. That seems like you should be asking more out of your quarterback and your offensive line. Yes, I know they're bad. They are. But you should be able to ask more out of your players in terms of diversifying your playbook, diversifying the ways that you get the ball in Goodson's hands, which Chuck Long said, in the week prior to the Wisconsin game, make sure you're getting the ball in his hands. And, if all it is handoffs and, the two routes of doom that Goodson has, that's insufficient. That is not understanding the assignment. Who wouldn't want to see Tyler Goodson breaking free on a wheel route, for example? Like, why are they not trying that 3 times a game at the very least? At a minimum, it forces the secondary to respect Goodson as a receiving option. It forces them to, respect downfield passing, because right now they don't have to respect that. There isn't a single defense that has to respect that from Iowa. I know that the over-the-shoulder catches by Reganey and Charlie Jones in back-to-back weeks, like, that was fun, but it is not a substitute for a working downfield passing game. It's just not. Yeah. I mean, like, Akram made a lot of hay with those routes, and the problem is every other defense saw Iowa do that when it was happening over those few years. And they know how to stop it now, or at the very least, they know to look for it now. And you don't really see Iowa play off of that tendency yet. You don't see Iowa punishing defenses for looking for that route. So, you can put the blame at the feet of a young offensive line. Although, again, I don't see how that can happen at Iowa. It shouldn't happen at Iowa. But at the same time, there needs to be more self-awareness in the play calling. More understanding of what your own tendency is. More understanding of, okay, if we call this audible, since defense X has put 8 guys in the box and they're shading to this, and according to our playbook, we audible to the outside zone to the left. Okay, obviously this is all hypothetical, but let's say, okay, defense gives us this look, playbook says we audible to this play. But if the defense knows that's what the audible is, then the defense can dictate, okay, it's 2nd and 9 and we want Iowa to run outside zone to the left. All we have to do is put our guys in this formation and we can force that to happen. Yay. and sure enough, I think we saw it especially against Penn State 2 years ago. This was a problem with Stanley, and I feel like it's a problem with Petras as well, that their audibles are too predictable, and their audibles are turning into a way for defenses to manipulate how Iowa runs its offense. It's the tail wagging the dog, basically. And yeah, that needs to change. Or it needs to stop. Right? I don't know. I really don't know, but I don't see Iowa dictating the terms of how their drives go very often. And yeah, as from a fan standpoint, that is frustrating. It's very frustrating. Look, I mean, we're just fans. All we do is whatever you want to call this, sports chat, sports talk, coverage, anything all of this. I think about 90% of it is just problem diagnosis, right? Anytime you see that there's going to be analysis, it's fans or broadcasters trying to figure out why football is not good happening at moment, right? And sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's so multivarious that it's hard to diagnose from our standpoint. And we don't know how these guys are practicing. We don't know, there's a whole lot that we don't see, the coaches do see. And yeah, and I get from coaches' perspectives why they're like, oh well, we lost 2 games in a row and fans are ready to throw up and fire everybody and this and that. I get why coaches have to be able to keep a steadier head than that. I get why their job is to not let a 2-game losing streak turn into a 3-game losing streak. And their job is to be more forward-looking than fans are necessarily. I get all that. But when there's so many years of readily obvious problems, and again, that's all we can do is watch the sports and say, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's right. I cheer for that. That's a problem. That's what watching sports has turned into these days. And so when all we see is the same problems, or what feels like the same problems over and over, we just sort of get used to that. And it's frustrating. It's not fun. But when I was sitting there in Madison, at Camp Randall, Section Z2, the failures, the play-by-play failures were so bad that at some point, like, all I could do was laugh. It was gallows humor. It was that bad. And you should, at the very least, any coach, I think, should aspire to never have that level of incompetence on the field. And again, fair play to Wisconsin. Absolutely earned that win. But, we're talking about a team that was number 2 in the nation and has now been outscored, 52-14 by 2 unranked opponents since then over the course of 2 games. Like, that is with a bye week there and there too. Yeah, I mean, all of these problems that we see are not, we don't see them getting fixed. So yes, of course, that's going to create some frustration. Adam brings up a good point here. Asks their quarterbacks to make a lot of decisions when most teams have reduced decision making for QBs. It's interesting that we bring up 2002 as the paragon of Iowa offense under Kirk Ferentz, and yeah, that offense was fun. It also helped that the offensive line was very good. But that offense also, as Adam said, reduced the complexity of the offense for Brad Banks. There was plenty of reports at the time that said, they were basically giving Brad just one half of the field to make his reads on any given pass play. And it worked. It worked great. Now, obviously, college football is more complex than that. And, obviously, Banks was also running a few plays where he had the whole field to work with. Of course. It's not that simplistic. But I think that you do want to make it as easy as possible for your quarterback to, quote, run the offense. Because right now, whatever it is Iowa's doing, you can't say that the offense is being run. This is, if this isn't failure, then I'm frightened at the prospect of what failing to run the offense would look like. It's a little grim, to say the least. And Halloween's over. It's November now. November's for Thanksgiving and turkeys and pies and comfort food and running the dang ball with some level of success. The scary season is over. By the way, this episode is brought to you by Arnold Palmer. Yay! Good at golf, good at beverage combinations, and a great buy at only 99 cents. Ooh. Shouts out to Arnold Palmer. Shouts out to all of you. Just a little bit of a reset here since we've been going strong for about, my goodness, already 38 minutes. My name is Adam Jacobi of GoIowaAwesome.com. This is the Iowa Sports Review. This is our Wednesday night, 8 p.m. in God's time zone weekly show. And this is a show for all of y'all in our little community, in our chat. So if you've got any questions, any thoughts, hot takes about Iowa's sudden, halfway unexpected 2-game losing streak, by all means, this is a place to do it. Just hop on into the chat. While you're here, go ahead and click that little like button. It makes us feel good, tells YouTube good things about us. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe, hit those notifications, and you can know when it is that we're going live, whether it is our midweek shows with Tom Close and me on Tuesday and Wednesdays, respectively, or our flagship post-game, legally not allowed to call it sound off, show after every game on Saturday, or in the case of Black Friday, on Friday. But anyway, you go ahead and hit that notification bell, and every time we are going live, you will know. And that's fun, isn't it? That's fun. Yeah. As Adam said, they need to be running more jet sweeps, more anything just to slow down the attack of the line of scrimmage by opposing defenses, because as it is right now, there are certain constraint plays that they don't have to worry about. And they see Iowa in the shotgun, as Adams mentions here. They can be fairly certain that it's not going to be a run. That needs to change too. And I don't think you can just put that on your young players, your young line, as something that, oh, they can't do. They can't handle that. I don't know. Because as it stands right now, we're watching an offense score or rack up about 200 yards of offense game to game. And it was worse against Wisconsin. It was awful. So, like, as it stands right now, they're already clearly not running an offense that they're capable of succeeding in. And so I don't think that the problem is the complexity or the lack thereof. I do think the problem is predictability. And if, punks like us sitting on our couch can accurately diagnose, what play is coming, if we can see that the first down rushes are bad, and really what this offense does on 1st and 10, we might need to get Interpol looking into it. Like, this is this is a whole new type of crime. I mean, they're 1st and 10. The world is your oyster. And they're so bad in those situations. They're so bad. All right, here's a question from Andrew. What are the top 5 albums to drown your sorrows after Iowa losses, and why are they all Elliott Smith? Now, that's a good question. Now, Elliott Smith, that's some dire stuff there. Just mix in something fun like some Connor Oberst. Maybe Tallest Man on Earth. We get, at the very least, some of those songs are the very, they're in major key every now and then. But yeah, even my wall of sound behind me, after an Iowa loss. I mean, do you dare go Florence and the Machine? I guess that stuff. She makes it sound good, but some of her messages are bleak. But after you've watched a team rack up, negative 13 yards of offense in the first quarter, yeah, just talk about throwing yourself into the ocean, Florence. It's okay. Everything's on the board. Yeah, the back-to-back sneaks, and then back-to-back fullback dives. What was especially concerning about that one was on the 4th down fullback dive. And that was in a situation where if Iowa converts that, they're in position to actually turn that game around a little bit. The score was 20-7. It was early to mid 3rd quarter, and they were in Wisconsin territory. And if you make it into that end zone, then all of a sudden it's a 6-point game after a really disastrous first half. To still be in striking distance at that point, to make it a 1-possession game with 20 minutes to play, or I guess at that point it probably would have been like closer to 25 minutes. At a minimum, it really would have taken the wind out of Wisconsin's sails. And it was not just the predictability that they were going to go back to Potabom. It was that on that very same play, Goodson was running one of those pitch routes. And at a minimum, he probably would have had to beat somebody one-on-one in the open field to get the first down and then probably get a lot more yardage. You should be able to ask Tyler Goodson to do that. That has nothing to do with the offensive line. That has nothing to do with, whether Potabom is the second coming of Mike Allstott or not. And he's not. I'm sorry. Don't use that to take it away from him. Potabom is very, very good as a blocking fullback. That is, and just because he's very good at that, I don't think that it makes a whole lot of sense to start taking the ball out of Tyler Goodson's hands because you want to see just how much you can get out of this guy. No. That is classic outthinking yourself. And the fact that Petrus could have just pitched to Goodson on that 4th and 1, let him do his thing, right? Like at the end of the day, don't you just trust your playmakers to do their thing, right? The fact that they didn't do that, that is something that you can place directly at the feet of the coaching staff. It has nothing to do with your personnel. It was a play, if anything, that was exactly what you would want to call if you're not optimistic, if you're not feeling good about your offensive line play. And against a defensive front like Wisconsin's, yeah, that that is a defense you should, call plays, scared of that. You should, if they're going to dare you to throw over the top to beat them, that is a better plan of success than saying, no, I think that we can run it on Wisconsin. I think we can do some slow developing downfield plays. They didn't even move the pocket very often. You remember that pass play that beat Penn State. Not only was there play action, which they need to do more of, but they rolled it, and it wasn't a bootleg, but they absolutely moved the pocket, rolled Petrus off to the side, which accomplished not only making the defensive linemen have to work a whole lot harder to get to him, but it opened up that field in front of him because there isn't all that traffic, and there I'm sorry to say it, but there wasn't an offensive lineman getting absolutely beaten by in single coverage right in front of his face. Like, he didn't have to worry about seeing that. And it was a lot easier for that play to open up for him. So why aren't we seeing that quite often? And I don't have an answer for that. I've said it before, but it feels like there's so many play calls that don't put the team in position to succeed, that don't really get competitive results. As a wise man in De La Salle once said, if you need 5 cents, don't ask for 3, ask for 10. And I feel like Iowa's offense does a whole lot of asking for 3 cents, especially on short yardage situations, on 3rd and short, 4th and short. You should, if the defense is working so hard to keep you from getting that 1 yard in the A gap on 4th and 1, and your offensive line is dodgy, then stop. then call something else. Call something that gets your playmakers the ball in space. Because as whatever this is, whatever you want to call this offense, it's not working. And all the fans see it, know it. We sat on our hands because, the first 6 games were all wins, and there's only so much criticism you can do after a victory that doesn't just feel like, being a wet blanket. Now that Iowa doesn't have W's to fall back on, week in, week out, the problems that we sort of, whistled past for a while, they are stark now. Again, and yes, it was The Grind 8. It's a great album. Hop on Spotify, listen to The Grind 8 by De La Soul. You know what? I'm going to do that as soon as we're done. I'm putting on The Grind 8. Great album. Anyway, sorry, I get off track just thinking of these things, but ultimately at the end of the day, whenever a fan base can diagnose a problem and we see that problem over and over, it's just going to turn us sour. And I trust that the coaching staff knows, like even the ones that you don't like, they've earned the benefit of the doubt that they also see that this is not working. This is not sufficient. So I get that, or at the very least, I trust that they get it too. And I also understand that there is a difference between knowing what a problem is and knowing how to solve the problem. But this is why they get paid 6 to 7 figures, right? Is to know enough about the sport and to know enough about basic education isn't the right word, but basic coaching, basic fundamentals to be able to teach all of that, to be able to implement all of that in the offense. This is your job. This is what you do. And this is, when sons aren't being hired by parents, this is the sort of thing where you're going to be held accountable. This is, whether or not you have earned the right to have your job for another week. Again, like in, at least in a perfect world, in a meritocracy. And I get that Iowa doesn't have that. I get it. We argue if you want, but I think we all know that's the case. So yeah, I get the frustration, and I hope at the very least that Saturday's game is going to be exactly that type of get everything back on track. Now that one of the best defenses in the nation isn't hounding you guys, and now that you would think that everybody calling the shots understands that playing for the punt is not actually winning, and in fact, playing for points is winning. You would hope that is going to be enough to jar Iowa out of this malaise that they find themselves in. And I don't really know what a better word for it is than that. You'd hope. And fortunately, we are only 72 hours away from finding out if that is the case. So we don't have to sit here and speculate for very much longer. So we'll see how this game shakes out. Again, not having Riley Moss or Terry Roberts is really tough for this defense. I think that we have conclusively shown that they do need Riley Moss around, that Moss is a starting quality cornerback. And boy, special teams really could use Terry Roberts right about now. Terry wasn't going to keep Max Cooper from muffing a punt or anything like that. But at the very least, they can, Roberts can be the difference between, say, a punt being down to the 3-yard line and a punt bouncing into the end zone to be taken out of the 20. That's 17 big yards that he can be the difference on. So they are going to miss him this week. And hopefully the Northwestern offense is anemic enough that they'll still be challenged by what Iowa secondary is, like this version of Iowa secondary. It's easy to worry about Fitzgerald, but part of the I don't want to call it dominance. I really don't, because I don't think it's a dominating. I will not agree with your assessment of that, but I do think that Fitz does have Fry's number more often than he should. We'll put it that way. But part of that has always been a defense that confounds what Iowa wants to do. And I don't think that Northwestern has that this year. So at the very least, we're going to see Iowa's offensive rhythm not be as challenged, or it shouldn't. If it is as challenged against Northwestern than it was, as challenged as it was against Wisconsin and Purdue, then it is full on mash the big red button panic time. It is. Like that's a bridge too far for even me, because I mean Nebraska put up a 50 burger on these guys, and I'm not content to live in a world where where Iowa can't at a minimum punish this version of Northwestern. I'm not ready to accept that. So I want to see that happen. All right. Well, it is just about bedtime here in Sherman Hill. We're 5 minutes till 9 p.m. and chat has been winding down. So with that, one more time, my name is Adam Jacobi, editor-at-large of GoIowaAwesome.com. This has been our Wednesday flagship 8 p.m. God's time zone version of the Iowa Sports Report. We're looking forward, genuinely looking forward to Iowa's trip to Northwestern under the lights of Evanston, the magic of Ryan Field at night. Yeah. But no, I am looking forward to it because I do firmly expect this to be a victory, and not just from a this better be a win. No, like I'm actually genuinely optimistic about Northwestern as an opponent that's going to help Iowa get the season back on track. And if it's not, yikes. But I do think that it's going to be a win coming for us. So with that, about time to call it an evening. So while you're here, make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already as well. That helps tell YouTube this is a fun and growing community, and we want to have more Hawk fans be part of it. That's how we get it to happen. So with that, thank you all for joining us. Have a lovely evening. Go Iowa Awesome. Go Hawks. Good night.